Hey everyone, and welcome to the deep dive. We're going to be looking at Vodafone Idea today.
V.
Yeah, V. We've got some articles, and it looks like they're having some challenges, but also some possible signs of a turnaround.
Yeah, this should be interesting.
Definitely. So what do you think? Can they pull it off?
Well, it's really interesting because it's not just about the company's financials, but, it's a company that connects millions of people in India.
Yeah, that's a good point. So it all begins with the subscribers, right?
Right.
What do we got there?
Well, the articles say V's been losing subscribers because of the price hikes in July.
Yeah, that makes sense. People always want a better price. What about their 4G subscriber base?
Yeah.
Did the articles mention anything about that?
Yeah, they did. The subscriber loss really hurt their 4G segment. It ended their 11-quarter growth streak.
Oh, wow.
They lost 0.8 million 4G subscribers, which brought their total down to 125.9 million in Q2 of fiscal year 2025. Okay, so just to clarify, fiscal year is how a company measures its financial performance over a year, and Q2 refers to the second quarter of that year.
That's right.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up. Sometimes those financial terms can be a bit confusing, but okay, so they're losing subscribers, especially in the 4G segment. And that's a big deal because that was like their growth engine.
Yeah, that is a significant concern.
Yeah.
But there might be a silver lining.
Okay.
Vi's CEO, Akshaya Mundra, says that trend might be reversing.
Really?
Yeah, he says that people are starting to come back because they want the better 4G service.
So it's a question of price versus quality.
Exactly.
Huh. It's kind of like that time I switched internet providers to save a little money, but the connection was so bad I ended up switching back. Sometimes you get what you pay for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We all face that as consumers, don't we?
Yeah, definitely.
Weighing cost against quality.
Yeah.
And for Vi, it's happening on a massive scale.
For sure. Okay, well, let's move on to the financials. Losing subscribers usually means losing money, right? What did the article say about V's finances?
Well, they said they had a net loss of 7,175 crore rupees in Q2 of fiscal year 2025.
Whoa. Okay, that's a pretty big loss. Is there any good news there?
Well, it's actually a 17.8% improvement from last year, and it's the second quarter in a row where they've reduced their losses.
Okay, so it sounds like the bleeding is at least slowing down a bit. What's causing that improvement?
Well, the article said that a big factor was the decrease in their tax expenses.
Okay.
But the question is this like a real improvement or just something temporary because of outside factors?
Yeah, that is the question. To really figure that out, we need to look at their plans for the future, don't we?
Yeah, definitely.
What are they planning?
What's interesting, because despite the losses, they're planning to invest 8,000 crore rupees in the second half of this fiscal year.
Really?
Mostly to expand their 4G network.
Wow, that's a bold move. Are they just throwing money at the problem and hoping it goes away?
That's a great question. And their long-term goal is even bigger. They're aiming to invest between 50,000 and 55,000 crore rupees over the next 3 years.
Okay.
To roll out 4G and 5G.
Wow, so they're going all in on network expansion, both short-term and long-term.
Yeah. Mundra says they have enough money for the second half of the fiscal year, but for the longer-term plans. Well, that's where it gets a little more complicated.
I was going to say, there's got to be a catcher. What are the articles saying about their funding situation?
Well, they're trying to get funding from lenders
Okay.
to help with these big plans, but the lenders are kind of hesitant.
Why? What's holding them back?
They're taking a wait-and-see approach, and that's partly because of this thing called adjusted gross revenue, or AGR.
Okay, I'm going to need you to explain that. What is AGR, and why is it such a big deal for V?
So AGR is basically about the money that telecom companies like V owe to the Indian government.
Oh, okay.
It's really complicated to calculate, and it's created a huge financial burden for V. It's like a massive debt that makes lenders nervous about giving them more money.
So it's not just about convincing lenders that this network expansion is a good idea. They've got this AGR thing hanging over them. This is getting interesting.
Yeah. Just when you think you understand what's going on, there's another twist.
Oh, I love a twist. Tell me more.
Well, despite all these problems, there's one investment bank that's really optimistic about Vi's future. Nomura.
Nomura. Really? They're usually pretty careful. What makes them think Vi can overcome all this?
Well, they've given Vi a buy rating with a target price of 14 rupees a share.
Okay.
That's almost a 90% increase from the current price.
Oh, 90%. That's a huge jump. What are they basing that on?
They're predicting that Vi will start growing its subscriber base again by fiscal year 2027.
Okay.
Because of those 4G and 5G plans we talked about.
Yeah.
So they see a lot of potential even though things are tough right now.
So to recap, we've got a company losing subscribers, facing money problems, and they've got this AGR issue. But at the same time, they're making huge investments, and at least one big player thinks they can succeed. It's a real puzzle, isn't it?
It is. And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. We've laid out all the pieces, but the question is, what does it all mean?
That's a great question. I think it's time to dive a little deeper into what might happen with this AGR issue.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start. It could be the make or break factor for V.
Yeah.
This AGR thing, it's a big hurdle, not just for V, but for the whole Indian telecom industry.
Yeah, I'm starting to see that, but I still don't really get how it affects things beyond V's ability to get funding.
Okay, well, think about it like this. What the government decides to do about AGR could affect how financially healthy the whole industry is.
Okay.
If companies have to pay these huge dues, it limits how much they can invest in new tech and expand their networks.
Right.
This could even slow down 5G and affect the quality of mobile services and how much they cost for people like us.
So the AGR issue is like a domino effect, impacting not just V, but the whole industry and even us, the consumers.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's why lenders are being so cautious. They want to see what the government's going to do about this whole AGR mess before they give anyone more money, including Vi.
It's like everyone's waiting to see what happens, like a big game of chess. And AGR is the piece that could change the whole game.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it takes us back to Vi's strategy. They're betting big on network quality being what sets them apart.
Okay.
But in a market like India, where people are really sensitive to price, is that going to be enough? Especially with companies like Jio and Airtel already doing well with 4G and rolling out 5G too.
Yeah, it's like trying to catch up when everyone else has a head start.
Yeah.
How do you get people to pay more for your service when there are cheaper options, even if they're not as good?
It's a tough challenge for sure. Vi's basically saying, hey, we're the premium option. We're giving you a better, more reliable experience.
Right.
But they got to convince people that paying more is worth it.
Yeah, especially with BSNL showing that people want those budget options.
Exactly.
It's making me think about myself. Like when I'm choosing a service, I'm always weighing up cost and quality. Sometimes I'll pay more for a better experience, but other times I just want to save money. I bet it's the same for loads of people in India.
Oh, definitely. And that's what's so interesting about this whole situation.
Yeah.
Vi's trying to balance their own financial needs with what their customers want and what they can afford.
It makes me wonder if Nomura sees something that others don't. They're saying Vi will get more subscribers by fiscal year 2027, and that's a pretty bold prediction considering how things are right now.
Remember, Nomura does really thorough analysis.
Right.
They're not just making these optimistic predictions for no reason.
Yeah.
It's likely they've really dug deep into Vi's finances, their expansion plans, what could happen with AGR.
So maybe they see a way for V to succeed that others aren't seeing.
Maybe. They might be betting on a few things. First, that Vi focusing on quality will get them customers who are willing to pay a little more for a better experience. Second, that the government will sort out the AGR thing in a way that helps V and lets them get the money they need to grow. And third, that V can actually roll out their 4G and 5G without any big problems.
So basically, Nomura's optimism depends on a lot of things going right for V.
Exactly. It's not a sure thing at all. There are still lots of risks and challenges ahead.
This whole Vi situation, it's like a mini version of all the challenges that telecom companies around the world are facing. It's about competition, new tech, needing to invest all the time, and trying to balance affordability with making a profit.
Yeah, you've got it. And those pressures are just going to keep increasing as we use more data with 5G, the Internet of Things, and just needing more bandwidth in general. The choices that companies like V make now are going to be really important for their future and for the future of being connected.
And it all comes back to this AGR issue. That's like the biggest problem VIA has right now. What do you think are the most likely things that could happen?
Well, there are a few possibilities. One is the government says you have to pay everything you owe for AGR right now. That would be a huge blow to VS financially and might even lead to bankruptcy.
Wow, that would be traumatic.
It would. Another option is that the government gives them a break, like a payment plan, or maybe they reduce how much they owe.
Okay.
That would give VS some space to breathe and focus on getting back on track. And then there's the wild card.
A wild card? What's that?
What if the government steps in and gets more involved in the telecom sector? We've already got BSNL, which is state-owned.
Right.
What if they merged V with BSNL and made a huge national company?
Whoa, hold on. That's a big move. But what would it mean for us? Would it be good or bad?
That's the big question. It could mean cheaper prices and better coverage, especially in rural areas.
Okay.
It could also speed up the rollout of 5G because the new company would have more resources and infrastructure.
That sounds good. Are there any downsides?
Well, there are always downsides. A merger like that could mean less competition and less innovation because there'll be fewer choices. It could also lead to the government having too much control over the industry. It's a complicated issue with no easy answers.
So basically there are potential benefits, but also potential risks. It's a trade-off. More affordability and coverage versus less competition and maybe too much government control.
Yeah, exactly. And it reminds us that these business decisions, especially in something as important as telecom, they have big consequences. It's not just about the companies, it's about everyone. Consumers, investors, and even the government.
You know what? I'm starting to see that this deep dive into V is way more than just about one company. It's about how complicated the telecom industry is, the challenges of doing business in a market that's changing so fast and trying to balance government regulations with private companies. It's a fascinating story, and it's happening right now.
You're right. And even though we can look at the data and imagine different things that might happen, the future is still uncertain. But that's what makes it so interesting.
Okay, so we've looked at the challenges, the possible solutions, and what all this could mean. It's a lot to think about. But now, for the big question, can V actually pull this off? Will they succeed?
That's the question, isn't it? And to answer it, we need to think about everything we've talked about. The lost subscribers, the financial problems the AGR issue their plans for investment, and what their competition is doing.
It's a lot to consider. Where do we even begin to unpack all that? So we've talked about a lot of stuff, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
Fiend's definitely facing some tough times. But we've also seen that there are ways they could recover, and some analysts like Nomura are actually pretty optimistic. But can they really do it? Can they turn things around?
That is the big question.
Yeah.
And I think to answer that, we need to look at everything we've discussed so far. The subscribers, they've lost their financial situation. The AGR issued those ambitious plans they have and what their competitors are doing.
Right. It's a lot to think about. Where do we even start?
Well, let's go back to their main strategy. Their big bet is on network quality. They're putting a lot of money into expanding their 4G network and rolling out 5G.
Yeah.
They want to offer a better experience than the other guys.
Yeah.
But is that going to be enough in a market where people are so focused on price?
That's the thing, is it? Like we saw with BSNL, there are lots of people who want a cheap service, even if it means the speed or coverage isn't as good.
Yeah, you're right. So Vi have to find a balance. They have to offer good quality that makes people willing to pay a bit more.
Right.
But they also can't forget about the people who are really watching their wallets. It's a tricky situation.
It is. And they've got that AGR issue hanging over their heads. It's like this big threat that could derail everything.
Definitely. What happens with AGR could really determine whether Vi can make a comeback or not. If they get a good outcome, like a payment plan that's easier on them, it could give them the financial space they need to make their strategy work. But if it goes badly, it could really hurt them financially and might even be the end of the line.
So it sounds like their fate isn't completely in their own hands?
Yeah, in a way, it's not. They have to wait and see what the government decides to do about AGR. And that takes us back to that wild card we talked about, merging with BSNL.
Yeah, okay, let's talk about that for a minute. It's such an interesting idea. Could that be what saves them?
Well, it's definitely something to think about. If they merged with BSNL, it would create this massive company, one that would have the resources and the reach to compete with Geo and Airtel.
Right.
It could also speed up the rollout of 5G and maybe even lead to lower prices for consumers.
That sounds almost too good to be true. Are there any downsides to a merger like that?
Well, there are always two sides to every story, right?
Right.
A merger that big could mean less competition, which could lead to less innovation and less choice for consumers in the long run.
Oh, okay, I see.
Plus, it would create this huge state-controlled company, which raises questions about the government having too much influence over the telecom sector.
So it's a trade-off, like you said before. Lower prices and better coverage in the short term, but maybe less competition and innovation in the long term. And the government might end up having too much control. This is complicated.
It is. And at the end of the day, it's the government's decision. They have to carefully consider the pros and cons. Think about the impact on the industry, the economy, and of course the consumers.
It feels like we're at a turning point. A lot depends on the decisions that are made in the next few months. Will Vi be able to overcome these challenges and come out stronger, or will they just fade away?
We'll have to wait and see. But I think this deep dive has given you the information you need to follow what happens. You understand the challenges, the opportunities, and the different scenarios that could play out.
Exactly. We've looked at the financials, the strategies, the competition, and all the regulations. We even talked about the possibility of a merger and what that might mean. It's been quite a journey.
It has. And while we might not have all the answers, we've definitely explored how complicated the telecom industry is and the things that are going to shape its future.
So to our listeners, we'll leave you with this final thought. The story of V isn't over yet. Keep watching what happens, pay attention to the news, and form your own opinions. Is V going to make a big comeback, or are they heading for the exit?
That, my friend, is for you to decide.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of Vodafone Idea. Thanks for joining us on this fascinating journey. We'll see you next time. Until then, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.